here. It was very important, the observation. It was very detailed. Thank you very much. We are going to take into account. Now we are going to pass with Sabantho. Sabantho, please. We are going to present, and you have 12 minutes.
Okay, thank you. Title: Carrying Her Voice. This project was created thanks to the support of FIMI and the Caribbean Amerindian Development Organization, CADO. Carrying Her Voice centers on the lived experiences of Lokono women in Pakari, Region 4, Guyana. It explores how women hold on to ancestral knowledge amidst globalization, gendered violence, and cultural loss. Everyday acts like cassava preparation and weaving reveal not only how women survive, but how they resist, maintaining culture as a living form of resilience and identity. Next slide, please. Here you can see South America and where Guyana is located, where this case study was happened. Next slide, please. Here in this red barrier, you can see the Guyana Shield, which is a ecologically protected area, and you can see that Guyana is within that area. Next slide. There is a pink dot, and that is exactly where this community, Pakri or St. Cuthbert's Mission, is located. And the red dot is the capital of Guyana, and you can see that they're very close. Research topic. This research examines how Indigenous women's connection to land, craft, and spirituality shapes identity and continuity. Through their testimonies, we see how knowledge survives across generations, despite social and environmental pressures. Cassava and weaving are more than livelihood. They are memory and prayer. The project challenges how policy and development overlook these realities, placing Indigenous women at the center of cultural endurance. Next slide, please. This is an aerial photo of the center of St. Cuthbert's Mission, aka Pakri. Next slide, please. Objectives and methodology. The goal was to document and honor women's knowledge systems, understanding how they are sustained or interrupted across generations. By gathering testimonies from elders, middle generation women, and youth, I traced how cassava and weaving function as threads of continuity and healing. The study combines storytelling and observation, treating these practices not as data, but as living knowledge rooted in community, rhythm, and care. Next slide, please. Methodology. This was an intercultural, feminist, and decolonial process. Women determined when, where, and how to share their stories, often in homes or while weaving, where they felt most at ease. Written and verbal consent were obtained following local protocol and the approval of the Tushao, our village chief. Every narrative was reviewed by participants before publication. This ensured shared authority and reciprocity, that stories remained theirs even in written form. Next slide, please. Context of the case. Pakri, or St. Cuthbert's Mission, is a Lokono community in Guyana's Region 4. Shaped by histories of colonization and Christianization, these forces have eroded many ceremonies and Indigenous institutions, yet women continue to anchor the community through land-based practices. Cassava and weaving endure as sacred labor, connecting spiritual, ecological, and social life. In these acts, resistance and cultural sovereignty persist. Next slide, please. This is a photo of the women in our community gathered together, peeling cassava. Next slide, please. Grating cassava. Next slide, please. This is where you then put the grated cassava into. It's called a matapi, where you then drain the poisons and liquids, and which we also collect. Next slide, please. And then this is the product of that drainage. Next slide, please. And this is where it goes after to make cassava bread. Next slide, please. Conceptual framework. The study is grounded in intercultural principles, valuing both Indigenous and Western knowledge equally, guided by reciprocity and collective benefit. Women's testimonies were linked to international frameworks like UNDRIP and CADO, situating local realities within global rights contexts. Cassava work was understood as a ceremony of identity, where food, spirituality, and womanhood converge, reinforcing that Indigenous knowledge belongs in both community and policy spaces. Next slide, please. And this is women weaving tibisiri. Women stripping tibisiri, which then becomes the product that they weave. Next slide, please. And these are their crafts. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Next slide. Theoretical references. 4 key frameworks guided this study. Decolonial epistemology challenges colonial erasure, reclaiming women's crafts as intellectual and spiritual knowledge. Intercultural theory builds dialogue between Indigenous and academic systems. Feminist ecological perspectives highlights women's roles in land stewardship and continuity. Human rights and environmental justice recognize land, food, and culture as inseparable rights. Together, these lenses reveal that Indigenous women's labor sustains both ecology and identity. Next slide, please. These are some photos from the field walks during this case study. Next slide, please. And a pineapple farm. Next slide, please. Insight from Indigenous women. The women's voices revealed both strength and rupture. Elders hold most traditional knowledge. The middle generation longs to reclaim it, and the youth risk disconnection altogether. Many spoke quietly about gendered violence, revealing both pain and courage. Yet through cassava, weaving, and storytelling, they continue to affirm pride, strive for unity, and embody resilience. These insights reveal the emotional and cultural heartbeat of carrying her voice. Next slide, please. Pineapples and bananas from the field walks. Next slide, please. Cassava bread made by one of the interviewed elders. Next slide, please. Research findings, Chapter 1. The study found that Lokono women's everyday practices are deeply political. Cassava and weaving serve as ceremonies of belonging and survival, not just crafts. Despite external pressures, from church influence to extractive industries, women maintain these as acts of cultural resistance. Policies rarely acknowledge their contribution, leaving gaps between state frameworks and lived Indigenous realities. Next slide, please. Research findings, Chapter 2. Women's testimonies reveal that culture, spirituality, and survival are inseparable. Cassava is both food and faith, a living heritage passed through women's hands. Silence around violence underscored the need for safe, women-led spaces for dialogue and healing. These findings call for the action to strengthen intergenerational bridges and to honor women's knowledge as both heritage and leadership. Next slide, please. This is our oldest elder that we interviewed in this case study. Next slide, please. Advocacy plan, goal, objectives, target audience. The advocacy goal is to strengthen healing and cultural continuity through Indigenous women's leadership. Objectives include ensuring that women's voices inform decision making and policy. The target audience spans the local, women, youth, and elders to the national and international, including policymakers and organizations that shape Indigenous and environmental governance. Next slide, please. Strategies, activities, outcomes. The strategy blends community empowerment with policy engagement. Storytelling and media visibility extend women's narratives beyond Pakri, reshaping who is seen as knowledge holder. Workshops bring together elders, youth, and leaders to restore intergenerational exchange. Case study booklets and articles serve as advocacy tools. The project will be offered to the Pakri Village Council to adopt and seek funding through Guyana's carbon credit program. If not pursued, I will independently apply for Indigenous-led project grants to ensure this project does come to fruition. Expected outcomes include recognition of Indigenous women's knowledge in policy, stronger community ownership, and renewed continuity between women's labor, spirituality, and healing. Next slide, please. Conclusion. Summary of findings. Carrying Her Voice shows that Lokono women's everyday acts, weaving, planting, and storytelling are powerful forms of resistance and renewal. Yet generational fractures endanger this continuity. Healing those divides requires creating intentional, women-led spaces for transmission, unity, and education. This is where Waihiaro Kalata, We Women Heal, will emerge as a living extension of the research, transforming insight into action. Next slide, please. Recommendations. Recognize Indigenous women's ecological and cultural role within policy and education, ensuring funding streams, including climate and carbon credit funds, reach women-led projects, support intergenerational education linking elders, middle generation, and youth, amplify Indigenous women's voices in decision-making spaces regionally and globally. Next slide, please. Thank you. Carrying Her Voice is more than research. It is testimony, resilience, and the seed of healing. Lokono women continue to weave identity and continuity through acts of care and creation. Waihiaro Kalata, We Women Heal, carries that legacy forward. Thank you for listening, for witnessing, and for walking alongside us in this journey towards cultural renewal.
Gracias, Sabantho. Muchas gracias. Vamos a pasar ahora con Taipei, por favor.
Thank you, Sabantho. We are going to keep on with Taipei, please.
¿No la escuchamos?
We cannot hear her. Please, you have 8 minutes.
Tahom, kena taiwei da tiono, dirika taipeli, boriken taino daka chalio mung te yaha, tanahu omabui. Good day, relatives and sisters. My name is Taipeli. I am a Boriken Taino, and I am happy to be here today with you. Before I hone into the study, I want to make a couple of points for the benefit of all, not just those that are doing the investigations, but the audience as well as they work themselves on their own projects. It is important that as Indigenous women and researchers, we maintain a balance so that we do not inadvertently place Eurocentric or Western ways above Indigenous ways. And the other thing that I really think it's important, specifically from us as Indigenous women, is that when we speak about Indigenous feminism, that has a very significant and distinct meaning than that of dominant society. And we must always be sensitive to these particularities. And perhaps that is something that may be at times as specific as the indigenous peoples themselves. So that is a note that I wanted to share with everyone. Now, I am honored to be the person providing this commentary, not just because its author, Sabantho, is my spiritual niece, but also because the study was based on members of a related indigenous nation to mine, the Lokono peoples. This study, which captured what could be perceived as the story of many of us, women and girls from indigenous nations throughout the globe, painted a picture for us that highlights the voices of women in a broad intergenerational spectrum. The women interviewed range in age from 89 to 15 years old. And yet we can see many common denominators among the stories of the women, as well as the gaps that demonstrate the urgent need and importance for us to take proactive and effective measures to ensure our cultural knowledge, sciences, and technologies, languages, and cultural practices are preserved and intergenerationally passed down. I wish to highlight an element that I see as really really good, and that was the great and respectful way in which these interviews were held. Unlike what many indigenous peoples have experienced in the past, and perhaps some still do, where they become subjects of study without any say or effective follow up from those that have been studied. Yet this study upheld the respect and dignity of the women. They maintained the right to not answer or stop the interview. These conversations were held at places of their choice, and and where they felt comfortable and safe. Copies of the work will also be provided for the archives of the community. It includes recommendations and future actions to be taken, such as the creation of the Waihiyaro Kalata, in English, We Women Heal. In my opinion, this approach could serve as a great model for those who will consider conducting studies with indigenous peoples in the future. And I say with because for the longest time, as I indicated, we have been subjects of study without any say. And here you could see the collaboration, the respect, and Sabantho on today's presentation expanded on all the measures and care that they took in great fashion and respect to the interviewees. From the elder generation, Grandma Charlotte, she's the one that 89, and Mai Levine, we heard about how knowledge was passed down by their own elders and relatives, such as the agricultural methods and the processes of their staple food, the cassava. The unpaid labor as a form of invisible knowledge is also displayed. And I thought that this invisible knowledge was really significant. And sometimes we need to have words and phrases like that to create an impact. Because really here it's almost like an oxymoron, invisible knowledge, but yet it drives down the message. Um, Through the study, we witnessed the connection of woman, land, and Mother Nature as a healing and comforting experience throughout the stories of all the generations. Grandma Charlotte worked on her weaving during the interview, and it is evident that there's great satisfaction by her feeling useful and active. The weaving in itself is therapeutic and proudly affirming, especially her being 89 years old. So there's also a psychological element in this, and I thought that was really uh, brought forth throughout all the different interviews. We also see the ambiguity of silence echoing throughout all the generations interviewed. We see silence manifest both as a protector, but also as complicit to the pain endured. It was painful to also learn from the anonymous young woman who needed to be heard and could not find listening ears. Holding that pain inside with almost resignation while still understanding that she needs to be heard. The gender based and sexual violence we heard from them also demonstrated different defense mechanisms that we as women have adopted in order to survive the ordeals we are faced with as Indigenous women. Elder Mai Levine, given to a man in marriage at age 13, spoke without bitterness as she related the story. The question is, was it normalization of a traumatic experience, or has she healed from it throughout the years? And it was obvious that our anonymous young woman is still carrying the burden without finding a channel for release. A great contrast with the younger interviewee, Savannah, who has felt comfort and refuge in her family. Like many Indigenous peoples in the world, colonization and Christianization have had a tremendous impact on our Indigenous languages. There's also a very evident and concerning gap in the transmission of knowledge, whereas the elder generation hold the knowledge, as Sabantho indicated, the middle generation seeks to inherit that knowledge but encounters barriers, and the younger generation is at risk of losing it all. The concerns identified on this study go in line with those previously expressed by Indigenous women at the Second World Conference of Indigenous Women and during the discussions and formulation of what became General Recommendation number 39 of the Convention for the Elimination of Discrimination Against Women, which specifically addresses issues pertaining Indigenous women and girls. This study exposes the need for allocation of funds and resources to go directly to Indigenous women groups and or organizations for their wellness, support, economic development, and cultural continuity. It is gratifying to see that this study did not stop at interviews and reporting, and thank you very much. The study and the recommendations that came from it inspired the creation of a pilot program as the next step to follow to address those issues and concerns that were identified. After all, why Hiyaro Kalata? We women heal. I want to say, I have to add to this that I was really proud in seeing that Sabantho, as she stressed in today's presentation, yes, she has calculated what the budget would be, what they could be holding during the sessions of Waihiyaro Galata, but at the same time, she also has a plan. If the funds do not come through the sources that are expected, ideally, she still wants and plans to continue with that goal of acquiring it some in some other fashion. And I think that that is what we need to be proactive and also look at different ways, right? Not just put your eggs in just one basket, but also try to look further and so that you can ensure that if there are any obstacles that you do not stall or stop a program because something fell apart. So I'm really glad. I also think that it is important to always connect as much as possible um, when we are making conclusions or recommendations, etc. If we understand our rights and the conventions that apply to us, or like these two examples that I gave, the final document on the Second World Conference of Indigenous Women, or General Recommendation 39, as well as the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, it is important that we always tie the concerns to those rights, to that recommendation, to that convention whenever possible. Because I think it affirms where the gaps are and where the lack of respect of those rights are. So, Hahom, thank you very much. And I am here to assist in whichever way possible.
Muchas gracias, Tai. Muchas gracias, Sabantho. Felicidades por tu intervención.
Thank you very much, Tai. Thank you very much, Sabantho. We have to say congratulations. So please, I need to tell you to all of you that you respect the time. You know that it's important for us respect the time. Now we are going to receive Rocío Silverio. Rocío Silverio